My name is Tomasz Poprawka. I'm working here at the Foundation for Polish Science, and I'll have a great privilege and honor to be your host today during that event. I would like to really warmly welcome all of you, especially the potential candidates who are clearly interested in applying for funds with the programs that are currently open for applying, and the programs that we'll be discussing in few more details later on. I would like to also let you know that this event is being live streamed on our YouTube channel. So at the same time, I would like to welcome all of the individuals that are watching us live, and to let you know the recording of that session, of that whole information day, will be made available on our YouTube channel later on. So at your convenience, you can go back and see what has been said here. At the same time, after the round of presentations, we'll have Q&A sessions. So you are free to ask any questions that pops in. And then we'll also have a lunch break and a sort of a panel discussion about how to apply and what are the experiences of our laureates of those programs. And we will close up with roundtable discussions. So we will be available for you really throughout the whole of the day. And now I think we can move on and start with the presentations. And I would like to give the floor to Michał Pietras, Director of Program Division, who will give you a broad overview of what the Smart Growth operational program is and how the FNP role fits within the program. The floor is yours, Michał.
Thank you very much. I called it Smart Growth Strategy, just to say you that what I'm saying now is a general view on the programs, on the calls and competitions in the foundation. However, I am highlighting the most important features of the objectives of the funding we have now in the foundation. So whatever I say, it is very helpful for preparing a successful application. Because in the end, when you meet the panel and you talk to them, you have to show certain motivation and vision of what you want to achieve. That's the building you are in it right now. And about us, about the Foundation for Polish Science, we've been established for 25 years now in Poland with a mission to support excellent science. So our focus in competition is always the science and always the people and always excellent people or the people who want to become excellent. And from our beginning, we've been funding our program from our own sources, from the endowment. Only since 2008 we've been receiving structural funds of the EU. However, these programs operated with structural funds are really with great substantial funding and very competitive funding in Poland, also in Europe. And excellent science and innovation has been our mission, so that's why all our competitions now are very much in line what we are doing and what we've been established for. We endorsed very strongly human resources excellence in research policy of the European Union. This is a sort of document of the Commission and which states basic principles of ethical conduct of researchers and especially the conduct regarding the recruitment of the independent researchers, of the PhDs and of the members of the groups. San Francisco Declaration, that is very important hint to you because we've signed this declaration, we've endorsed this policy saying that the publications shown in the proposals are judged under their value and the originality, and the candidate is always judged under their contribution to the results and or the discovery described in the paper. There is no point of bibliometrics or impact factors counted by proposals, however only the impact and the role of the candidate in it. Peer review is our major approach, and you will see here later how it is organized in detail in the foundation. However, I will highlight that you will be evaluated by your peers or the people who are perhaps more above your career now, at the least at your level. So you can be safe to be in contact or in discussion later, perhaps within the panel, with the people who are exactly the experts of what you do. And more of our experts are not from Poland. Majority, a great majority of experts are not from Poland. So another very important feature. And saying now about the sources of funds for the competitions. From this year and from 2015, in fact, we started to operate two great measures, important measures under this smart growth operational program. Structural funds in Poland are organized in line with major documents called operational programs. There are 5 national operational programs. One of them is Smart Growth Operational Program. It is in fact devoted to development of science and innovation in Poland. And the foundation is beneficiary of two measures. One is called International Research Agenda Program, and one is Increasing Human Potential in R&D sector. We are talking today about this source of funds, and this is about capacity building, about addressing needs of people in order for them to achieve success in the whole R&D sector. About the funds, our initial contracts with the intermediary body is for the IRAP program above $500 million of Polish zloty, and for this human potential even more than $500 million. So this is accessible to the calls we are now talking about. And this 600 million Polish zloty is organized under 5 types of competitions we organize. Team program, team tech program, first team program, HOMING program, and POWROTY, which could be translated as reintegration, perhaps the best. And roughly, it is the budget is split equally among those 2 and those 3 under one contract with the intermediary. It's not very important. It's saying you that it's enough probably for you, for your projects, and quite encouraging to apply. And about this smart growth program, operational program, we prefer to talk about the strategy, smart growth trust strategy, because all our programs address the same objectives: to increase the role of science in the development of economy, for greater impact of scientific research in our growth. That's why we want to achieve this objective through the means of our calls and your projects and your proposals and your future results. And this, in fact, bottom line is this science and business cooperation, which is now certainly, as we believe, crucial to improve and has to be improved in Poland. And it will be done only thanks to your proposals, of course, and thanks to your individual involvement, and through this crucial stage of transfer of knowledge. So from the beginning of your projects, you have to think what the transfer of knowledge would be most effective. In my case, whether it would be a direct commercialization, indirect, open source, whatever access and transfer of knowledge to society or to the public domain. It is very important that you have to think from the beginning about that, and perhaps look around how it is organized around you and put your impact on it. Internationalization. In some of our calls is the must. In some of our proposals, for instance, for the team program, is the must, that you have to have an international partner. However, in all the projects, we count very much on the best practice you learned, perhaps abroad, in the excellent partners abroad, perhaps in the places where you did your PhD or your postdoc experience. So to implement the best practice from the best places in the world is very helpful. It's essential. It's a stairway to achieve excellence. On the other hand, internationalization is that all the applicants from the whole world are welcome to apply, because applications are in English. So you can also make some publicity for these programs for people you know abroad who would like to establish their groups or their projects in Poland. And even more for internationalization is the fact that all the competitions in your future teams and groups have to be done on this international perspective and has to be open for the people from the whole world to apply. In the sector of industry, in the sector of businesses, we believe that these R&D activities are not sufficiently developed, are not impressive, simply. And we would very much encourage anyone who is able to conduct an R&D project to establish a group or a project within the sector of the industry or in the companies. SMEs or great state-owned companies or huge international companies, however, to develop an R&D project within the companies and develop some innovation and some innovative projects within academia. So the academia's role would be to develop R&D projects which would be helpful for the industry, and for industry we believe that would do excellent science. Services are also possible to develop. We have a special call for that, how to develop services for within scientific units. You may be interested in that. And going to the point and the focus is always the person who applies. And we believe that the programs and the funding we now have and the incentive we have would encourage people to find new jobs, especially create new jobs within the businesses, within the companies. For the companies to reach out to people and to encourage them, invite them to establish their R&D groups within the companies. Intersectoral mobility, it could be done in a way that local scientists and local institutions, academia would be, scientific institutions would be involved with the industry together with their proposals. It could be done also through possibility to engage students and PhD students in the programs. They are also in the center of any projects, because it's for them to learn the best practice and to increase their chances on the market of the labor, to have this experience of industry-academia cooperation before, during the studies. So in every programs we have the calls for the students or for PhD students to participate within the projects. So it has to be always in mind of people who apply, where are the PhD students or students with whom I will cooperate, I would cooperate, especially if the project is submitted by a company. A company needs to show and demonstrate that they will have cooperation with academia, and they will have students or PhD students also involved. It doesn't need to be the case always. However, it's very important for the program and for success of the smart growth strategy to involve young scientists within the projects. However, all projects have to be advanced and competitive. All projects have to demonstrate strong science, because only with a strong science could have consequences. It could be implemented, could make a difference. So the selection and our criteria will be focused on excellence and on potential and on future applications. You may choose in your projects very fundamental issues regarding a future application. You don't need to be very applied or at the end of the process. You can be somewhere in between from the idea to the market. You can choose whatever the stage of this application. However, it always has to be a science, a strong scientific project. And we believe also that the competitive funding, especially competitive salaries and stipends, will encourage people abroad, especially Polish origin abroad, however, all the scientists in the world, to be interested in participation of our programs. And to be involved and to apply, the individual scientist has to make a choice whether the project will be operated within an existing scientific unit or within an enterprise, as I said before, which is very much well encouraged. Or the third way is to create a consortium among two bodies, scientific unit and a company. However, for the value and for the panel, the most convincing factor always is the leader, is the applicant, is the person whose idea is in the proposal. And it is the focus of our evaluation. And the next couple of slides and couple of presentations will focus in detail on the competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Michał, for your presentation and providing mostly you, our guests today, with a broad perspective of what the Smart Growth operational program is, what are the level of funding that is at stake, and what is the role and how does the foundation fit into the larger picture of the EU structural funds. The stream of that funds is now currently available in Poland and will be available for next couple of years. And now I would like to focus a little bit more on the specific programs that you all arrived here at the foundation to really learn about and to talk about those. And those are the grants for young doctors. Michał has just finished up with this slide, and I would like to continue from that point on, really now in this presentation focusing on the leader, of what are we thinking, who is the leader, what are the leadership skills, and how did we design those programs to actually embrace the leadership of the applicants. So first, just a couple of general remarks that we have that are common for all those three programs that we are talking about today. The first theme, HOMING, and POWROTY reintegration. The first thing is that it's about the principal investigator, otherwise called the project manager. There are certain merit expectations that we like to see from the applicants within those programs. And these are the expectations that comes from the truly outstanding track record of yours. That we really take care, that we really want, if we decide to grant someone with a funding, we would really like to see that that person has already proven a record of scientific achievements, and moreover, those achievements shall be clearly original. Really, this is something that is a key factor for a successful program to be implemented later on. One thing to be noted is that we will obviously judge the level of this scientific excellence according to the stage of the career you're in. For instance, we'll definitely look for a more experienced leaders in terms of first team program than compared to, for instance, POWROTY reintegration, when we know from the beginning that you actually did experience a break in your research. Therefore, we will adjust for that. Then there are formal requirements. They are fairly clear. They are laid down in the competition documentation. And first of all, in order to be eligible candidate for those programs, you might have received your PhD up to 5 years before the year preceding the deadline of the competition. That, under certain conditions, can be extended in up to 9 years in total. And to actually give you a sort of, I hope, clear example, we're in a situation that within those competitions open right now, we have a deadline in 2016. Therefore, the standard 5 years window that will make you an eligible candidate starts from 2011 to 2015. If you received your PhD degree during that time, you're perfectly eligible. You don't have to do anything else, just go on with your application. However, you can also apply and become an eligible candidate, even if you received your PhD as far back as in 2007. But then, you have to provide us with the reasons that you would like to extend that period. And those reasons can be, for instance, exclusively for women, and a fact of giving a birth to a child. That gives you an extra year to that time because of the responsibility that comes with the parenting. That also could be the fact that on some point of your career, you decided to actually move from academia and work in a different sector, for instance, an industry, without actually pursuing a bona fide research. That is a break from the academia, and we'll count that in. Or really things like even health issues or health problems, breaks related to that will be added into. And a unique, in case of the applicants or the candidates for the first team program, these candidates can actually include in that period your postdoctoral research training periods. So that will add up to that time. So the programs that we're really discussing today are the first team, and as its name already suggests, the goal of the program is to support the experienced, talented researchers from all over the world to launch their first research teams here in Poland. The next program is HOMING, which and its goal is to really attract young, talented doctors to come to Poland to pursue their research here. And those could either be arrivals of truly international foreign researchers that are finding Poland as a good place to running a research right now, or Poles that are currently working outside of Poland and are thinking of returning to home. Therefore, we're actually creating a home atmosphere here for you. And last but not least, there's POWROTY reintegration program, where with its goal is to actually reintegrate individuals, talented researchers, after a period of break, back into academia. So you might be coming from a time of the parenting, or or you actually might be moving back from the industry back to the academia with that experience that you have gained there. Therefore, that could be a perfect example of this intersectoral mobility here. As we said, we're really focusing on the leaders. Actually, when we think about those competitions, we can actually agree that this is a sort of a search for the true leaders. And depending on the program, we will look for different qualities. But in general, the whole competition is organized in a way that we will like to, from all of the applications, step by step, identify the best potential leaders to pursue those grants. And I'll just provide you a very brief outlook of what do we offer, and at the same time, what do we expect to see from you. So first of all, in terms of the first team, when you're about to launch your first research group, this is a capacity building project. It gives you that opportunity to move from being a member of someone else's group and to actually become a group leader, to actually become a mentor for younger researchers. But to do so, we will definitely need a certain level of experience. And experience both in terms of scientific excellence, that previously you have produced such excellent scientific or innovative results that will enable you to transfer that knowledge to your team members. And at the same time, you have to have those leadership qualities to actually become a mentor of younger students and PhD students and even postdoctoral researchers. You will be given, or you can apply for a quite considerable budget with a standard size of it is €500,000 for applicants in this program. But then with such a budget and with such a role comes the responsibility. So our panel members, the external reviewers, would like to see the evidences that you will be able to manage a program of such size, that you will be able to manage and to guarantee a mentorship for your team members. And you will be able to do that for 3 years. However, if you're doing really well, then on some point you will be given an opportunity to apply internally within close competitions for the grantees for an additional extra year of funding that actually can be supplemented with additional funds that has not been foreseen in your original application. And taking all that together, we're really looking for a very ambitious project. We really like you to urge you to really get out of your comfortable zone and to provide and to put the proposals that are adventurous, that within those proposals you're asking really big questions, that there is a potential for a great science, for a breakthrough science or innovation, depending on which part of that scale of R&D you are in. And something that is very unique to that program is that you will be given, as you are building up your capacity, you will be given a chance to apply for additional funds for an extra equipment. Especially this might be very important for those of you who will be relocating or who will be starting or launching those first research teams in a new host institutions, that you might need some additional staff to be surrounded with to actually execute your project in the best possible way. Something what is very important to us and what we will be looking after is your scientific collaboration. Michał has already mentioned that, and we know from our own experience, we know from a number of examples in literature, that if you engage with your scientific partners, especially in terms of international partnerships, the science you do may be much greater. The results might be much more impactful. It will be easier for you to disseminate, to actually publish better, and so on. That's why for us this is very important, and would like to see your partners being identified in the proposals and to develop those partnerships throughout your programs. And all in all, we think that this is a good recipe for an excellent science, a science that will result you with such a paper, patents, or implementations that will enable you actually to progress farther on with your scientific career. While for us, it will be a pleasure and honor to actually support you on that journey. When we think about the HOMING program, with its goal, again, is to attract talented researchers, irrespective of their nationality, to come and run their projects in Poland, there's one extra formal requirement. And that formal requirement is actually your experience of doing R&D works outside of Poland for at least 9 months, which I think in current days, when you are much quite mobile, this should not be an issue. And what you will be offered within this program is a postdoctoral-like project, a project that if you like, you may execute even on your own. As one PI, you will do all the job that is required. And what we want to achieve with this is to really to create an open space and really a vehicle that young, talented researchers can come to Poland, really to either come back to the motherhood or to really sort of investigate if the Poland is a good place, if that's the environment that I would like to stay in later on. And the budget that you will be given for that is quite adequate. It's not as large as in first team. It's about 200,000 euros. And we believe that this is enough for you to really gain the experience throughout that project, that at the end of the 2 years period that you will be able to execute your project, you will build up an independence. You will receive and you will obtain such results that will enable you to really acquire additional funds, for instance, in first team program, to really progress with your career. Because we consider it as a sort of a first independent project that you manage, we will require and definitely carefully look at your dedication, the level of your dedication that is set up at the 60% of your full-time employment. And this is what we would like you to do, to really focus on that one particular research program that you proposed to execute, to do it throughout the 2 years, and we hopefully see the really good results at the end of that time. You might also actually involve an auxiliary research staff if you wish. So in case of HOMING, those could be students and PhD students, plus technicians and research support staff. And again, also what is very important for us are the partnerships. But also what could be interesting for you, that apart from the international peers, you may also involve in your project local partners. Since the program as it is actually a reason to reintegrate or to really arrive freshly to Poland, it would be good to establish links with the national, with colleagues from Poland. POWROTY and reintegration program is really fairly the same to HOMING. The exception is its goal, and its goal is to attract, to really provide a space for those individuals, for those talented research that have moved out of science for a variety of reasons, and now they decided to come back to academia. So that formal requirement is that you have experienced at least 9 months of continuous break from a bona fide research. The design of the program is very much the same as in HOMING. It's a postdoctoral-like program with a very similar budget of around 200,000 euro that you will be able to execute it throughout 2 years, and you may involve additional staff. And would really like to see that that is a good chance for you to reintegrate in the scientific community here in Poland, that throughout that time you build up your independence that will enable you to really move on and to become more independent, to start acquiring additional funds. To sum up, just put that table here, but all that information you will find within a competition documentation. So here I would like to urge you really to get that piece of document and to read it through. All the information is there, and we believe it's laid down quite simply. And if there are any questions, you can always ask them today here at the Q&A sessions, later on at the individual roundtable discussions, or just drop us an email, give us a call, and we will try to help you to understand what are the thoughts behind certain parts of the competition documentation. And a few things to be noted. The budget is that it is. However, those are the values that are suggested. So if you wish, you can request a little bit less if you think that your project doesn't really require that much funds. However, if you think to the contrary, that the ideas that you would like to pursue would require more funds, you can clearly request more than that. And the sky is the limit, really. However, if you do so, we'll definitely look into the balance. So what is the relationship between your proposed budget and the research task that you are trying to convince us that you will do with that budget? And everything else, I think I've already said. The quite difference between the homing, reintegration, and first team is the research staff that you may involve. So in case of homing, reintegration, these are students and PhD students that you will be able to mentor, plus technicians and research support. While in case of first team, when you actually create and you initiate your own research team, will definitely need at any given point of executing your project for a team to consist of at least 3 researchers from among students, PhD students, or postdoctoral researchers, plus the support staff. As Michał has already said, those projects can be executed, can be localized either at the research scientific units, like standard universities, research institutes like Polish Academy of Science and this sort of, or at the industry, within the enterprises. But then, in case of enterprises, the rules of the state aid apply. And in case of first team applicants, that we know that you will have a much more experience, we will allow you even to form a consortium within your project, a consortium that will be formed between a scientific unit and the enterprise. When it comes to the state aid for the enterprises, this is fairly simple. It is being regulated by national and European regulations. And I don't think I would like to really elaborate much on that. If you decide as a scientist, as a principal investigator, to run your project with the enterprise, you will definitely have people within the industry that clearly understand the rules of the state aid, because that is something, those are standard policies, really. And there are certain levels of aid intensity that you may receive. There are certain bonuses that you may apply for, so that eventually you might end up being financed up to 80% of the total value of the project to be carried out at the enterprise. Of course, with your proposal comes the budget. So that is something that indicates to us how would you like to execute your project. And based on our experience, we decided to simplify the budget, the way we construct the budget in our applications compared to the previous funding perspective. So it's divided into large chunks. The first one are direct costs. The biggest part of that, mostly, and that's based on the experience of the first competitions, are remunerations. So this is where your employment costs are. Secondly, there is a chance for you to subcontract some parts of your research, but that comes with the cap of 25%, and you cannot exceed that. There are also resources for staff development, and this is where the stipends are within your budget. And this is where all the trainings, the research exchanges, this sort of activities that will enable you and the members of your teams to actually develop further scientific and transferable skills. And then the last but not least, we call it other direct costs, which are actually the costs of running your research programs. And then obviously within a budget we have an indirect costs. These sum up to 17% of actually incurred direct eligible costs, however excluding the subcontracting and staff development. The details of that are outlined in a cost eligibility guide, which is an attachment to our competition documentation. So you should really, you can really go through this, and I think this is also fairly simple. However, if you have any additional questions regarding to that, on our later on on the individual discussion, we will have our colleagues from a separate unit that are dealing clearly with the issues of cost eligibility and really the budgetary issues. So you can feel free to ask those questions. Many times you're asking us about the remunerations and the level of stipends. Michał has already mentioned that these are quite competitive. In fact, the levels that we suggested here are based on the Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions from the Horizon 2020, and these are, again, put well in the competition documentation. The two things to be noticed here, that they are sort of, again, unlimited. So those are the standards values that we think are quite fair for you. And what is very important, that principal investigators, the members of the consortium member representatives, and the postdoctoral researchers will be involved in those projects based on the employment contract. While in case of PhD students or students, a PI can actually decide whether he or she would like to support members of his or her team via an employment contract or with scholarships with a tax-free stipends. And the very last thing is the reporting. So as with every other grant, you will be reporting to us. However, again, based on our experience, we try to simplify that. So there will be a financial reporting twice a year on a fairly simple form, and that will enable us to see that you're actually progressing with your project. While a research progress report will be submitted on the annual basis, so just once a year, and this is when we will be learning on, in terms of science and innovation and this merit-based things, how do you progress with your project. We'll also look at the indicators on the continuous basis, but then colleagues of mine will talk about that a little bit later on. When it comes to those periodic reports, I would like to stress that those will be utilized by us to really assess how the project is moving forward. So if everything goes very well, and we see that there's a clear progress that you're really developing, and that you actually may stipulate some sort of changes or additions to your projects. Based on that, based on the opinions of our external experts, we might actually expand your project. We may add additional tasks or additional staff member or even increase your budget. However, if we see that there's something difficult happening within your project, we might actually implement together some sort of a backup or rescue plan, or in extreme cases, we will not hesitate to seize the project if it goes really badly. And in general terms, I would like to assure you that we are open to many kinds of changes. We will be very flexible towards our grantees under the common sense. So if you really wish to apply some changes, they have to be relevant. They have to be adequately argumented. There must be merit-based results for that. So it's not a wishful thinking that, well, let's do something and we will just say yes. We will definitely look into that and make sure that this is vital for your project and it does make sense. So that's it from my side, and I think there might be some questions to be asked, and I think I would really like to urge you, if you have some, make a note or whatever right now. We will have question and answer sessions right after our presentation, so you're free to ask any questions and we can elaborate on specific parts of the projects. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleagues who will present you with the way how we structure the application process and how do we evaluate. First, I would like to invite to the floor Dr. Monika Biłas-Henne, who is a program officer responsible for HOMING program, and she will give you an outline of application process.
Thank you for the introduction. Good morning. In the first part of our presentation, I'm going to explain you the application procedure, and then later on, my colleague Anya is going to talk about the evaluation criteria. So at the beginning, I've got a message for you that we've modified our application system, and it's been already 21st century system. What I mean about that, and what does it mean for you as a possible applicant, that you submit the application form only electronically. I mean, we don't require from you to send us any printed applications, not anymore. So how do you do that? As you used to do, you have to do that from through our online system available for you at the wnioski.fmp.org.pl. One more notification here that you shall submit the applications filled in entirely in English, except from very few attachments that are specified in our competition documentation, but every single field that you fill in our online form must be filled in English. Why? Just because of a simple fact that we reviewed your proposal abroad. So how do you do that? First of all, you have to create, if you don't have one, you have to create an account in our online system. It is a very simple procedure. It will take you about a minute. Once you have an account, you are ready to log in. But before that, we give you a choice of selecting an operational language, let's say, of our online system. And you can choose the Polish language, in which system will be provided, or English language. So prior to logging in, you have to choose the Polish icon flag if you wish the system operating in Polish. And if you'd like to have it in English, you have to click this British icon flag prior to logging in. My recommendation would be to choose the English version of the system because it's less confusing. Sometimes we receive applications partially filled in Polish, which is formally forbidden. So why? Because if you are requested some information in Polish, while the system is operating in Polish, automatically you start to enter the data in the same language, unconsciously, I mean. So if you choose the English operating language of that system, that would be less confusing. But still the choice is yours. So once you've logged in, then this panel comes into view. You have the whole list of available programs, then the list of your applications, because you can apply in different programs and at the same time. Then the list of realized projects here carried out at the foundation. Please focus on the addition status, because while the program is in preparation stage, it is still not available for you, but when we are collecting applications, you can select that. My choice is here HOMING program, obviously, since I'm coordinating that one. And then you get into the specific program. And you've got several sections here. Principal information, project budget, attachments, which are literally the application form, and then the download section. Here we've prepared for you some templates for downloading that are required to be uploaded then in the applications procedure, and also some instructions or extra documents that we consider relevant while applying. So I need to drink some water. Then you have the section of verification and the application submission, and it is exactly when you do submit the application electronically. But first you have an option to verify whether it is correct, if there are some information missing. Starting from the beginning, principal information. What do we require from you? I'm going to talk about all three programs today, HOMING, Reintegration, and First Team program. So at the beginning, we require in the project subsection some very basic information about the project itself, like keywords, its title, abstract, its duration, starting date. Then the project location. As my colleagues already mentioned, you've got two options in HOMING and reintegration program. I mean, you can locate the project either at the research unit or at the enterprise. And the third option arises in the first team program, that you can locate the project in fact in both locations as a consortium option. So you have to declare where the project will be located. Then some basic information about the applicant, about you, your personal data and affiliation. Then the PhD degree, when exactly you obtained it, and if there is a basis for extension, also why would you like extend this period, and something particular for reintegration program, that is you have to give us an information about the breaks in research work, very detailed information, when it happened, where did you work, why the break occurred. So at that moment, you don't have to upload any documents. It is just an information for us. You have to collect all documents that will be required at the last stage of the merit-based evaluation. And the same thing in the HOMING program, but about your research outside Poland. And the next session is about the indicators. I want to make a comment on that because from our experience, we see that there is sometimes we can see a hidden rule while we are reading proposal, that the greater number of indicators, the better application is. There is no such a rule. Please give the value of the indicators in a estimate them in a very realistic terms. Don't overestimate them. Every indicator in the project has to be really correlated with the project's objectives. The other section is partners section. Here we gather information about the partners involved in the project. At least in every project, at least one scientific partner is mandatory, and then you can have as many partners as the project requests, but also you can have industrial partners. Here there is kind of exception from the application structures, because in all of that sections you just enter an information, and there is the whole section for the attachments uploading. But this time you have to upload the intent letter of every partner while entering his or her data. So every other attachment will be uploaded in the attachment section, but letters of intents from partners are being uploaded in this principal information partners section. So the next section is about the excluded reviewers. This is not a mandatory subsection. If you can think of someone that should be excluded from the reviewing process, please inform us about that. If you consider someone to be excluded, give us his or her data, and I warranty you that we are going to exclude that person from the whole reviewing process. We are going to obey your request for sure. Then the other subsection, the same for all three programs. It is about ongoing projects. We gather the data about the projects you are currently carrying out as a PI. And then something particular for the first team program is the information about the already completed project, the project that you've carried out as a PI and also as a team leader, because what we'd like to found in the first team program, as its own name says, those are first teams, not second, third, or fourth teams. And if you have already had an experience of running a team, you carried out a project as a leader and team leader, so you are not just not eligible for that program. And the very last subsection of this principal information section, it's about consents. which is gather information whether your research will require some consents or permission, like those required in the animal experimentation, GMO, clinical trials. And if yes, it's just a notification for you that you are going to obtain, you will have to obtain that consent prior to starting working in a certain research task. Okay, the other great section of the application form is about the budget. I won't go into the detail, but I'd like to make 2 comments on that. First one is that you have to enter some data prior to starting working on the budget. I mean, this is a project location, which I just comment in the principal information section, because depending on that, some categories may vary. And then the information about the project duration and its starting date, because depending on that, you are going to have different reporting periods. Just one more comment on the budget, if I can. This is a kind of user-friendly system, because as Tomek has already mentioned, some categories has got limits. But if you exceed a limit, the verification process doesn't allow you to close the application, and you will get a notification on that a certain category has been exceeded and needs to be improved. Of course, always the responsibility is yours, but the system will guide you somehow through the whole application process. Okay, let's go to the next, the biggest section of the application form. Well, there are different groups of attachments. The first one is related to the applicant. You have to attach a brief CV, up to 3 in case of homing and reintegration program, and up to 5 in case of first in program most important scientific and or implementation achievements. Then you have to attach the description of the originality of those aforementioned achievements, and then the project manager's statement. This is the whole list of statements, and the template of that document is available for you in this download section for downloading. So you have to download it, print it, sign it, and then upload it here in the attachment section. And in case when the project is located within the consortium options, every of those aforementioned attachments is applicable is required also from the consortium member representative. And the next whole group of the attachment is related to the project itself. Anya is going to discuss it in a little bit more detailed way, but I just want to mention them. It is the description of research program, the description of economic or social significance, then the cooperation with the partners. Maybe one more comment on that document. We want you to think about the cooperation in a very well-defined way. I mean, this should be well balanced within the whole project, that the cooperation with the partner, foreign or local one or industrial, shall really make the project better. And let me put it that way. It shouldn't be just the fulfillment of a formal requirement of having a partner. And just to remind you that the interletter you've already uploaded in the principal section information. Okay, so the next part of the documents related to the project schedule divided into tasks, indicators, this time with its justification, because in the principal information section you just gave us a certain value of each indicator, and this time you have to justify why you are planning to obtain such an indicator within the project, and then the description of the available apparatus and the expenses plan on the equipment. Templates for all those 3 documents are available again in the download section. And those are some attachments that are applicable only for enterprises that are carrying out the project by itself or within the consortium options, and well, enterprises very well know those documents, so I won't make comment on that. And in fact, this is just, I haven't mentioned yet the fact that this application procedure consists of 2 stages. I've just discussed the first stage of this procedure. So you have to give us a very detailed information in the principal information section. Then you have to attach all the required appendices in the attachment section. You have to work on budget. And until now, you have full possibility of replacing any document that you've attached to, into the system, to change any data you've entered, but while the verification of the application is positive, and you decide that that's it, you complete editing, and that means that you go through the stage 2, which consists in submitting enclosing into the system 1 or 2 documents, depending, again, on the project location. So if the project is located at the research unit, you are requested to upload the research unit statement. If the project is located at the enterprise, you are asked to upload the enterprise unit statement. And if the project, only in case of first team program applicants, is located within the consortium option, you are asked to upload both documents. Once you do that, you can submit application, and that's all. How does it look like? Well, the deadline for current editions of all our programs is 17th of October, this year, local time, 4 p.m. local time. So how does it look like in the system? So this is the verification subsection. You complete editing. You have an option to download the printed version of the application. Sometimes the authorities, before signing the statement of the research unit or before signing the statement of the enterprise unit, may require from you a printed version of the application. So that's the option to download it. Then you have in the stage 2 the information about the required fields for specific project location. I've chosen here the location within the consortium options, so the system give me the information that it requires 2 files to be uploaded. While I'm uploading it, I have an option to submit an application. So once you submit it, you get no email from us, or there is no information. You have to wait until we formally evaluate all applications, and then you will get a notification about its results. But the evaluation procedure and criteria is going to be discussed by my colleague Ania.
Good morning and thank you. In the second part of this presentation, I'm going to tell you something more about the selection criteria and the evaluation process itself for all the 3 programs that we are discussing today. The evaluation process consists of 2 main parts, which are the formal evaluation and the merit-based evaluation. And the formal evaluation happens here in-house at the foundation. To avoid any troubles at this stage, please make sure that you first of all qualify to the program, that you provide all the necessary information, that you upload all the required attachments and statements that my colleague has just discussed. And also please make sure that you do not exceed the page limits for the documents where it has been defined, because if you do so, we will unfortunately have to cut them off. And the second big part of the evaluation is merit-based evaluation, which now consists of 3 stages. The first stage is scientific and economic panel, the second stage is written reviews, and the third stage is the interdisciplinary panel of experts. And I'm going to discuss the 3 of them in a moment. This graph shows the time schedule of one edition for each of the competitions that we are discussing. After the opening the edition, we collect the applications for around 2 months. In the meantime, we usually organize an information day, such as today. After the submission deadline, the foundation has 5 months to finish the evaluation process until the publication of the list of the winners. And once again, perhaps I should stress that the deadline for the editions that are ongoing right now is the 17th of October, 4 p.m. The first merit-based stage of the evaluation is called Scientific and Economic Panel. To this stage, we invite at least 3 panel members who possess proper, adequate knowledge either in science or in the implementation of R&D works into the industry. In case your application is more commercialization-oriented, you can be sure that we always have a member that actually of the panel that actually has appropriate background, and this kind of applications are not discriminated. In case we receive many applications representing a certain field of science, we can divide this stage into several smaller sub-panels and then evaluate the applications appropriately to the topics represented in the submitted applications. At this stage, we have access and merit-based criteria, and the access criterion is the following. Whether or not the topic of your application falls within so-called national smart specializations. The list of those you can find on our webpage. What about the topics that actually doesn't fall within those specializations? Well, it is still possible to apply for you, but you have to convince us and describe it very convincingly that there are some future possible applications of your project results. So in principle, we expect science with consequences. That means that the results of your project should have some future possible applications, either in the economy or in the society. And this criterion will be individually assessed by the panel to all the applications separately, and it must be fulfilled for any application that will be further evaluated. At the bottom of each slide, I'm going to mention an attachment which is the most important from the point of view of the criteria or stage that I'm discussing at the moment. However, I would like to stress that at all the stages, all the panelists and all the reviewers have access to all the attachments and read indeed all the attachments related to your project. At this stage, with respect to this criterion, in our online application form, you have a roll-down menu with the choice of national smart specializations, and you should indicate the one that is the most appropriate from the point of view of your topic. Additionally to that, there is an attachment called Description of the Economic or Social Significance and Likely Applications of the Project Results, where you will have a space to describe those. In particular, take it very seriously in case your topic falls outside the smart specializations. And let me talk about the merit-based criteria at this stage now. There are 4 of them. The first one is the high scientific quality of the project. So, of course, we expect excellent science. The scientific problems that are being addressed in your project should be competitive from the global research work point of view. And also one more thing, since, as you know, the goal of the programs that we are discussing today is the improvement of human potential in R&D. So the project must be also somehow offering some opportunities for young researchers. And the attachment where you address this criterion is called Description of Research Program. And here, in case if applicable, so if you plan to involve any students or PhD students, in case you are interested in the HOMING or REINTEGRATION program, and in particular, in case when you plan to build a team, in case of the first team program, you should divide the research tasks between the group members. And not a formal requirement, however, a small tip from our side, it is quite useful to have a short summary at the beginning of this description. The second merit-based criterion at this stage is the socio-economic importance of the project results. So the project should be addressing key scientific, technological or social issues and should have positive influence on the economic or social development of Poland. And again, an attachment that I have already mentioned where you can address this criterion is called description of the economic and social significance of the project results. The third merit-based criterion at this stage is the evaluation of the applicant as a researcher. We are expecting that you, as the PI, should not only fulfill all the formal requirements, but also have appropriate competence and knowledge to pursue the research that you are proposing. And the attachments that are being most important at this stage are the CV of the applicant, of course, up to 3 or 5, depending on the program, most important scientific or implementation achievements of the applicant. You should choose them very carefully because it is your choice, and you should attach the ones that are the most valuable, the most original from your point of view. And the last attachment important here is the description of the originality of those uploaded achievements. And the last merit-based criterion at this stage, but not least, is the evaluation of the partnership and the role of the partners in achieving the project objectives. As you already heard, one research partner is mandatory in all the 3 programs that we are discussing. It can be either local or foreign research partner. You can also indicate more research partner if you wish. You can also indicate business partners, so local enterprises. But it's not the number, but the quality of the partnership what matters. And all the partnerships should be based on synergy or complementarity basis. The attachment where you can describe those is called description of cooperation with project partner or partners. But we also want to hear from the partners that you indicated that they already understand and know the project in detail. And this happens in the letters of intent, which are mandatory for all the partners that you indicate in your application. At this stage, the panelists give the points in all the 4 criteria, and the average number of points that you receive in all the 4 criteria must be at least 2 for the application to be further evaluated. And in addition to that, the panelists will also give a recommendation to each of the applications, which can be A, which means positive recommendation, meaning the application will be further evaluated. Recommendation B is a conditional recommendation, and recommendation C is a lack of recommendation, which means so-called 1 addition deferral period. In practice means that the applicant, but not the project, has to wait over 1 edition of the competition to apply again in the program. And the panelists will prepare the final ranking of the applications, also based on the points and all the recommendations. And after this stage, it is between 40 and 60% of the applications that will be qualified to the second stage of the merit-based evaluation, which is written reviews. This stage is basically a peer review process. And at this stage, we invite for each application at least 2, but usually 3, foreign, completely independent, third-party reviewers who are specialists in your very narrow research field. They will be evaluating your application according to well-defined criteria. And these are always people that are with no conflict of interest and completely independent and foreign specialists. In addition to that, the members of the first stage of the evaluation, so from the scientific and economic panel, and from the last stage of the evaluation, so from the interdisciplinary panel, cannot be acting as reviewers at this stage of the evaluation. There are 3 merit-based criteria defined for the reviewers. They are somewhat similar, of course, to the criteria at the first stage, and it is indeed so, but the reviewers, I would like to stress again, they are really experts in your very narrow field of science, very carefully selected, and therefore they can really deeply understand the applicant's track record and also the project itself. So the first merit-based criterion here is the originality of the applicant's scientific track record. We ask our reviewers to, like have been already mentioned, not take a purely bibliometric approach, so not look at the numbers only, such as H-index, but rather focus on the originality of the applicant's achievements and his or her contribution to the given field of science. And the attachments where you can address this criterion are again the CV, the achievements that you have uploaded, and the description of your originality. One more comment perhaps here, the reviewers will be judging you, of course, taking into account the career stage where you are at the moment, which means you will not be compared to senior researchers, but they will know what to expect from you at the stage of the career that we are talking about. The second merit-based criterion here is the evaluation of the project itself. Since the reviewers are expert, they will understand in detail and evaluate the assumptions, the methodology, the procedures that you are planning, data processing methods, such things as expected consequences, project dissemination strategy, and so on. And again, the description of the research program is where this criterion is being addressed. Please make sure to divide it appropriately into research tasks divided for the group members. And another small tip from our side, but again, not a formal requirement. In case you have any preliminary results, it is quite useful to describe them in this attachment. And if you identify any risks related to your project, it's also good to describe the risk mitigation strategy. And the third merit-based criterion at this stage is the evaluation of the partnership again. Like I said, all the partnerships must be well defined and well justified. That means all the partners have to give some substantial contribution to your project. And the reviewers will be judging how the partners will be participating in planning the experiments, analyzing the results, disseminating the results, or promoting the project on the international arena. But also the partners should be or may be involved in mentoring young staff, like students involved in the project, and can provide training or internship opportunities for them. And two attachments, again, a description of cooperation with project partners, where you as an applicant address this criterion, and the letters of intent from each of the partners. At this stage, the reviewers will also, in addition to giving points in all those three criteria, will give a recommendation to each of the applications, which can be from 5, which means an outstanding application that must be funded, down to 1, which is a poor application that should not receive funding. And you must receive an average recommendation from all the reviewers, at least 3 points for the application to be further evaluated. At this stage, the reviewers may also indicate certain issues, doubts, or questions they have that should be clarified at the last stage of the evaluation, should the application be qualified there, of course. The reviewers may also indicate high-risk, high-gain projects, which we will look at with care. And after this stage, the applications that received highest scores, highest recommendations, or the ones that received significant discrepancies between the opinions of the reviewers will be invited to the last stage of the evaluation. And we usually invite around, at least the double number of applicants with respect to the number of applicants that will receive funding eventually. And this will be the last stage of the merit-based evaluation, and it is called Interdisciplinary Panel of Experts. This stage is basically an interview with the best applicants. At this stage, the panel members are representatives of various different fields of science. There can be also members of the foundation present during the interviews, but without the rights to evaluate the proposals. There are certain merit-based criteria at this stage, which are the following: whether or not it is possible to pursue the project proposed in your application at the unit indicated in your application, whether the planned indicator values are reasonable, whether the project will have positive influence on understanding the role of science in the development of Poland. And 2 more criteria that are being evaluated are the expenses on the laboratory equipment, in case you plan any, and also whether the project has a positive influence on sustainable development. In addition to judging those criteria, what is very important at this stage is how the applicant performs during the interview, during the discussion, and how the applicant addresses the comments, questions from the reviewers that came from the second stage of the evaluation. This stage can be also called search for leaders. So here you have to give an impression and really convince the panelists that you are already prepared to pursue the research that you are proposing in your application, and in case you are planning to build a research team, in case of the first team program in particular, you should be already prepared to build up and lead this team independently. At this stage, the panel members can also ask you to introduce some changes to the project, especially with respect to the planned indicator values, but also with respect to the budget, project budget that you plan, which actually has not been evaluated at any earlier stages of the evaluation. The panel prepares the final ranking list of the proposals, but eventually is the executive board of the foundation that, taking into account the funds available for certain edition of the competition, will allocate the funding for the best proposals. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ania. And now I would like to invite to the stage Ania, Monika, and Michał, and we will have around 40 minutes for questions and answers. And that session, if you wish, you can ask the questions in Polish as well. However, taking into account that there are some international researchers with us and in the room, it would be good to possibly to stick with English. Just have a seat here. Well, it would be nice if you could just introduce yourself so that we know who you are. So we're here. Monika wants to make some remark.
Yeah, I would like to clarify one thing. At the end of my part of the presentation, I said that you should not expect any feedback from us once you submit the application. Well, we don't say any email confirming that you have submitted application successfully, but you can check this in the list of applications in the system, its status. So whenever it is submitted, it is submitted. In fact, the first contact from us come when we revise those applications formally. So this is around 2 weeks after the deadline comes. You should expect an email from us with the formal evaluation results at that moment.
Okay. Who's the first one? Who's the brave one to ask the question? Arve. Okay, I see one. Okay.
Grzegorz Łach, Department of Physics, University of Warsaw. So, recently I got a position which also includes, as most university positions,
Teaching.
Includes teaching, yes. And the amount of teaching is by default large enough that in case of projects which involve forming a new research group might interfere with it. So it used to be a problem also at our department. So some people who well, for people who got, for example, ERC starting grant or Sonata BIS grants. And recently, the National Science Center, they introduced encouragement for the universities, for people who get this Sonata BIS grant, to reduce their teaching load. And also, the possible cost of hiring a new person for doing just the teaching can be is a qualified cost in the budget of the grant. So do you plan to introduce similar measures for first team grant, or maybe some of them are already?
We actually did.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you actually look into the competition documentation, and that clearly says that there is a certain suggested level of teaching load that is connected to PI, and then also to postdoctoral researchers and PhD students, that we believe that to a certain level this is fair, and many of you, based on our experience, actually want to do the teaching, and that gives you an access to students, to PhDs, and to really interact with the community. But that comes with a limit, of course. Yeah? So if you're overthrown from your university and you have to do, I don't know, 160 or more, we put a certain limit. So when you apply, actually, there's also in the statements of the unit that they know the regulations, that they will obey the rules of the competition documentations. The rules are not strict, so we don't say that this has to be lower, but that we highly encourage units to lower the teaching load for the members of the team. When it comes to somehow subsidizing someone who would do that teaching on an extra bit, that is not a direct cost in our programs. However, the university receives the 17% that sadly most of you will not really see that money directly. It will end up in the bank account of your university, and I think that's one of the ways that the university could subsidize someone else to do the teaching.
And a second question, which is more specialized, so also for first team grants. Let's say I have two projects in mind, one of which is clearly related to what I previously did and where I have a proven track record. And the other is more risky and more disjoint from what I did before. So it's known that, for example, in ERC grants, it doesn't really matter. So if somebody has a good track record in one field, he or she can apply it in another field, and it's not counted on this person. Well, it's and then this good track record is also counted as the person's benefit.
But
and in NCN grants, it's not like that. It's better to have previous CV related to the very much related to the project.
But that's why when you apply when you submit the application here, there is the whole set of attachments that Monika has been talking about that concerns your excellence. So this is your CV, the examples of your track record, the way how you described what has been originally achieved by you. And this is treated slightly separately from your project. And when we finally make the decisions, we take into account those things. So if you have already proven that you're good, that you can produce something that is meaningful, then you have that potential to actually do this again, maybe with a slightly different topic. However, if you do so, if you decide to take that route, maybe it's vital somehow to explain the reasons for that in your projects, to put that in the context of what are your sort of, what's your expertise and your knowledge that can support those ideas. And then again, there are partners in your projects. And that is when Ania actually used the key words, a synergy or complementarity. If you really take up a new avenue, maybe there is someone else in the world that could actually help you on that, and that could be this well balance in the partnership.
So what is the right place to describe it, like the relation between my past and the project?
I think that, I mean, well, you described your originality, your original achievements. So this is where you should describe what you have done so far in the best possible way. And then you have a project. So this is where you described your new project, and you can put somehow the context to this. We will try to discuss that maybe in a little bit later on the discussion panel, but then I see Maciej wants to comment on that as well.
Because I was ahead of the several panels, including ERC panels. On this stage, if you apply for first team, I think the last panel is looking how mature scientists you are. And it's very tricky to distinguish a person who is coming from a very good laboratory, but still is not mature, still is a postdoc. So all the papers you have all the nature science papers and everything, but you are just trying to convince the panel to conduct the subject which you learn being a postdoc. And this is very dangerous thing. You need to find, you convince the panel that you are already mature and you want to do something else. Okay, this is maybe the last chance to do something else. So please be careful when you want to proceed this task which you're, the subject which you're doing on the postdoc. And of course, you should be risky. And there is a risk always. And also there is a risk that the panel cannot support this. But I think at this stage of the career, you need to be risky.
If any of you would like to comment on that? So then...
Yes, but to be risky, it's also a risk to fail. So to help the panelists and the reviewers in such a case is crucial. To help that you are aware about the risk, that you can manage the risk, that you have answers why you are doing that, and that perhaps the partner is helping or something else. You have to manage the risk and help the panel to manage the risk.
Okay. Someone else? Okay.
Good morning. I have
Hi.
a question regarding homing program. So should I be actually living abroad when applying for it to be eligible, or I can spend some time before the deadline in Poland?
In fact, you might be already working in Poland, but you could have come to Poland not earlier than for current edition, 1st of January 2015, and not later than on the project starting date.
So it's the fact that you must have experienced that 9 months, but you also at the same time, definitely there are a number of applicants that are currently outside of Poland and are willing to apply. And thanks to most likely the electronic way of submitting those applications, it will be much easier, especially for those who are currently outside of Poland. But then, as Monika just mentioned, you might be already here in Poland since the 1st January of 2015. Having in mind that you experienced 9 months earlier than that, you're still eligible candidate. Okay.
I would have a question considering the first team project. You're looking for semi-senior scientists, mature, but such usually had opportunity or duty to supervise students, so one can say that there was a team already. But you already mentioned that it's not the second team or third, it's the first team. How do you tackle these issues?
Okay, so what we mean by the formal requirement is that you should not have completed any research team grants yet. So particularly there should not be some externally funded grants such as Sonata Beast or Leader. These, I think, the two in Poland that actually are in particular to build up a team. If you have already experience to lead some students, some individual students, a few of them, let's say, it is actually, I would say, even good for you. It's a good experience. It's good to show that you have done that, because definitely it's convincing the panelists, the reviewers, that you can do that. So we talk about externally funded research team grants that would be excluding you. Mm-hmm.
So it is, again, a matter of your independence. So most likely when you were guiding or mentoring students or PhDs, you were still a part of someone else, lab, group, department, whatever. While we will not, the candidates who actually already gained that independence because of these externally funded projects, that the ones that became leaders clearly, and the ones that are group leaders, really, who are leading a team surrounded around them, as long as they are still doing that. So in case of the Sonata B's leader or, ERC starting grant, as long as you're in the process, you're still executing those grants, we consider you to be at the stage of your first team, and you're still eligible. But the moment you close those grants, that's it. You have to compete with the, let's say, more senior scientists.
Michał Pietras. I have a question about first team. So could you estimate probability of success in the first stage based on your reviews on the first applications? So how many points I should get in stage 1 to success?
Well, there is not such definition. You mean the economic and scientific panel, right?
Economic scientific panel and achievements of principal investigator.
Yeah, there is no such definition. It is always being judged individually and also comparatively, so between the applicants that apply in certain edition. So it all will depend and differ between the editions. After the first stage, it's between 40 and 60% of the best applications that will be sent qualified to the second stage.
So, you know, for even from our experience of the past programs, it really differs from one competition to another. In the first one, we had more than 100 applications, if I'm correct.
118.
118. And so the competition was quite high. But then it could well be that we will receive, again, 100 applications this time, but there will be only 20 that are really, really good. And there's many of those applications that will be considered weak. But at the same time, what may happen is that we will receive 100 strong, excellent applications at the same time. And then the level of the points that will enable you to move on or to progress to the second stage will be different. And always the panel compares the different applications. And the panel truly says that this is a competition with the really high quality and the high competition between the applicants, or whether it's a little bit less, more relaxed. But there is nothing like a set value that this guarantees, that number of points guarantees you to move to the second stage. Unfortunately. I know that would be easy for you probably.
Okay. That's talking about the first stage. However, the points at the first stage doesn't count at all at the second stage and doesn't count at the third stage. You can go to the second stage at the really bottom, from the bottom, and you can win the whole competition. So the first stage is only the first approach to select not more than 60% of the applications for the next step. That's the role of the first stage.
Okay. So I see we have a question at the very back. Hello.
Hello, I'm Karolina Zawieska from PIAP Institute. I have a question regarding the first team and the role of foreign project partners. Do they also receive funding? Mm-hmm. And if not, what's the main benefit from them if they participate in the project?
Okay, so let me make it very clear, because we actually receive quite many questions about that. The project partners are not employed through the grants that we are offering. These are scientists who are supposed to be collaborators, but who are employed at other research units, so most probably receiving funding somewhere there. The basis of the partnership should be synergy or complementarity, meaning, as you say, business. The business of the partner should be that the partner participates in your project, and because he or she is a scientist, has some common publications, some common presentations at the conference, and so on. So this is the way we see the partnership.
I would like to comment on this. I think the applicants need to be so good that the partner want to collaborate with you. Okay? If the applicant is bad, nobody want to collaborate with him, you will have a problem to find a partner. Okay?
So I may also add something to this, that in principle, absolutely agree that there is no direct transfer of the funds between us and the partner. However, there are certain conditions that you may spend some money from your grant with your partner. So, for instance, if you're sending your team member somewhere on a fellowship, that within that fellowship you can actually pay the bench fees of your partner. In certain conditions, you will be able to. The partner might be able to invoice you for, let's say, really expensive pieces of, I don't know, chemicals or stuff that you have used in that collaboration. That you came with your research, you discussed it. Of course, that's the most important thing. That you together discuss those issues, and if you do something together, there are possible ways to actually be charged for certain things by your partner.
So in fact, wherever you go, you are allowed to have costs of your own. If you are here, you have the cost here. If you go to the partner and do something in the partner institutions, the costs are there. However, you are most important, so you generate the cost, not the partner generate the cost.
Really, the bottom line is what Professor Żylic said. That should be a partnership, that should be equal, and it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about the quality, about the ideas, about the exchange of your experience and so on, and not, I mean, don't put it purely down to euros or zlotys. You know, try to make an added value out of that. Okay. So I see. Okay. Hi.
Okay. I have a question about First Team program. I'm Mateusz Gola from Institute of Psychology, Polish Academy of Science. What if we believe in the idea of our research so much that we already started a startup company to start the preliminary studies funded from our own money? And I'm a shareholder in this startup company. Can I apply for a First Team funding as a scientist from Polish Academy of Science and as a shareholder in the company which already trying to perform preliminary studies for this project?
So you mean, but would you like to apply as a consortium? Or
probably it should be a consortium, but it's
that
a
probably
small,
will
it's a
not be
small
allowed.
startup, and I'm
might
a
not be
shareholder.
allowed because of the personal links between you as a project leader and you as well, depends on the shareholder or the function you have in the startup.
So
but
how to do that?
Well, but then that could be, for instance, if you're based at the university, you could have your startup as a partner, or you could, apply as a startup and do that research within your company. Why not to do that?
Okay, and does it influence the rating of the scores of the?
But then that again comes with the how you put it. Why did you choose that way and not the other? What are the benefits of doing it at the university or the Polish Academy of Sciences? Or why would you like to do it already at the company? So you have to convince the panel each time, irrespective of whether it's a university, enterprise, research institute, that proposal makes sense, that there is a thought behind that you did not just do that because, well, there was a chance, but you want to do that, and there are reasons to do that in such a way.
That's the point. The point is the reason why you do something. And what is in the criteria, there is nothing about this personal links or personal duality. And there is always the focus on the project. And if there are reasons for the project to be operated in the consortium, it has to be a reason for that. And for these particular partners. And other stuff are technicalities. We can sort out signing the final contract. We sort out the relationships between the company and the university and so on. We can sort it out. There are rules on public aid to solve such problem. If there is a reason, everything would be workable.
Okay, and I have a second question. It's a more formal question. So this period of 5 years after PhD can be extended, and one of the conditions of extension is a postdoc internship. Yeah. Does it also count if during the postdoc internship I was hired in Poland?
Hired by?
By a scientific institution.
Sure. If that was the postdoctoral-like contract, that's fine.
So you
that
got
doesn't
the
necessarily mean
continuity. You got the continuity of employment in Poland, being on the postdoc.
Yes.
It can be counted. It is similar to a stage that someone didn't go abroad at all and just acquired a postdoc grant being in Poland. So didn't move at all, keep the same position. However, got this specific period of postdoctoral training.
But that is the case that you're referring to is, I think, quite common in Poland, that people are actually going to do the postdoc while actually keeping a full employment, and you're probably on those unpaid leaves or stuff like this. But what we will count is the fact that the postdoc really, not the fact that you had some sort of employment ties with the unit.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. So where I see already at the back two gentlemen.
Thank you. Tomasz Borejko from Warsaw University of Technology. I have a question related to stipendists. Let's assume in our situation there will be consortium, university and a small enterprise. And where the stipendist can do his research? There is a 30% to pay stipendist. It can be PhD student, I mean, for example, and doing where this stipendist can do research in the both university partly and after that in the enterprise, or is it possible that we send the stipendist to the scientific partner and this person will do some research in the location of the this national partner?
National?
Okay, so one thing.
The scientific partner.
One thing for students is that they have to be students somewhere at the higher education entity. So that is the first thing. They have to be somewhere at the any project leader have to know about the possibility, if they want to have students or PhD students, that the university has nothing against that. And regarding the formal employment of students or postdoc of PhD students within the company, there is a way to just give them either stipends from the project, or for the doctoral students, even the employment within the company. So, but however, PhD project done within the company have to be, of course, agreed with this formal supervisor of the thesis at the university. So it is up to your agreements with the university to sort out this question.
And what with working this person on the scientific partner?
So
okay, it's
yeah. There must be an agreement between this PhD school and the PI, where this physically this person is working, because part-time can work in a company and part-time can work with at university.
Okay.
But he or she must be a member of PhD school, so she have a chance to accomplish a PhD.
Okay. One thing that I would add is that will be your PhD student in a way. That will be a PhD the member of your team.
Yes,
so ideally, that person should work with you.
Hmm? So we are not supporting Professor X or Y, who will be the. We are supporting you as a team
yes,
leader.
Yes.
Because there was a few applications like this, that the PhD belonged to the person outside the project.
Yes.
We will not agree with this.
My way of thinking is that I agree with you. That is my PhD student who mainly do his working in the project on the university, but for the benefit for the project, I mentioned that for example, for 1 month, I will delegate his to the scientific partner to learn something more.
Absolutely clear, sure. Those are in the budget when we have the whole section, the whole part of the budget for staff development costs. Those are those. You can really put a person on a secondment, someone. Either it could be a business company or it could be your scientific partner to go to learn something and so on. This is absolutely fine.
Okay. And I have a second question. There is a different score having the scientific partner from Poland or from outside Poland?
No. It's about the quality of that partnership.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a two-part question. One is a follow-up of one of the previous discussion that we had, that having a partner is more about increasing the synergy and not about money directly. But if I invite somebody from abroad to give lecture series or something for my students or even for the general public, of course the flight costs and everything can be covered by me. But what about the remuneration? Can this be covered for the person who is attending, giving the lecture series, let's say?
Well, for the lectures,
Perhaps not the lectures, but you can of course pay the visits of your partner in the research unit where you are working. And
so the cost will have to relate to the project, not to sort of general activities that you do. That your unit would actually attract your partner of your project to give a series of lectures that are, in a way connected to your project, but truly not really relevant. Your project does not depend on whether that person will give or not a lecture. But I think we can maybe discuss that individually later on with my colleagues from the separate unit on what bits of that trip of the partner from the outside of Poland to your research unit could be covered by the project.
And my second question is about a consortium. If I have an industrial partner which I have roped in just because they have some equipment that I don't have access to, but considering that this equipment is so specialized, the cost for this is quite high. So the best way to do this would be not to have them in the project at all and do it as a subcontractor. That was the easiest way. But I see it clearly that having them as an industrial partner in me will add points to my project proposal. So I would really like to rope them in as a project partner, but how can then they be paid for the considered equipment that I will be using? Are there any ways I can go about it?
Yeah. They don't need to be introduced as a project partner for that sake, for the sake that they have equipment. That's why they become our partners. The partner has to be based on the input on the research and development. For hiring and for renting any equipment, you have funds in your project for rent, for paying direct rent of the. So it's a contract with such a provider of the space, of the equipment, and so on, with all costs. And based on a contract that you cover all costs of the research done there, you just pay them. That is not the ground for becoming a partner, okay? It's not sufficient ground.
Yeah, but as I said, that getting such a high-profile partner in the project would definitely add value to my project proposal. So I really want to put their name in the project proposal because roping them in was a kind of a big deal.
But you know, it might actually act to the contrary, because if you put that partner just because it's a big name or it's a high-profile company, and what the panels and the reviewers will learn from your proposal, that what you actually want to do is to, either subcontract or just use their equipment, then what was that point? I mean, you might actually end up with 0 instead of maximum points, just because it was a good name of the company. It's not about that fact. I mean, you might come in with Apple, Google, or anything, and if there is no link, a scientific link between your proposal and what they are doing, then, well, that's the risk you're taking. Yeah? If you want to rely on a name as such. It's the same with your scientific partners. If you put a Nobel Prize winner on your proposal because it's a Nobel Prize winner, and there is no sort of interaction between you, there are no mutual benefits, that might actually work against your proposal.
Okay. Hello?
Go on. Yeah.
Yes, thanks a lot for this nice presentation. My name is Ulf Karlot, University Medical Center Düsseldorf in Germany. We heard a lot about the importance of the applicant. What I was missing, it goes a little bit in the same direction. For instance, I have to offer a certain technology, and obviously I'm coming not from Poland. What or how much emphasis should I put in an application for choosing this particular university? Because they have either maybe an equipment, maybe they have a professor, a visiting professor who is outside of Poland but has also established a side group there. As we have a page limit of 10 pages, is this an important fact to strengthen basically the choose of this university, the project itself, or is basically this a minor point and we should basically mention this in a short section and that's okay? So how much emphasis should I put? I know it's not a random choice, so I think it's of course more adventurous, but how much should I put it on?
So you have to decide, you find the best place for your project in Poland, and then we believe you. In fact, the localization of the project is only data of the address and whatever. There is no particular criteria. We do not evaluate the local institution.
At the last stage of the evaluation,
we discussed that, but in a slightly different terms, you know.
Yeah.
So
whether you can pursue the project at the unit that you specify.
Okay, so there is, in fact, just a criterion to meet whether it's possible or not to do the projects in this place. You have to find the best place, of course.
Well, basically, it's a symbiosis of hardware and scientific expertise. So
but
you can find.
I think for the common sense, I mean, if you have that 10 pages limit, yeah, then I mean, if you find a bit that you could put that you're doing that in that particular host institution because of the research facilities that they have there, that will definitely not harm you. And I think I'm not sure if that would impede the quality of the proposal that you're trying to put, because you still have 9.5 pages. Yeah.
Maybe to answer also to your question is that maybe not in this previous competition, but previously, when you ran different programs, there was a situation like this: that somebody coming from abroad didn't know the neighborhood, and he was trying to let's say, do science in a place where there is no science. And of course, the reviewers noticed this, and this was the end of the project. Occasionally, if the project was good, we asked this person to change his mind and to move this project to a better place.
Yeah. This is what I meant when that we look at the possibility of the project realization at a certain unit at that panel. This is discussed that have you chosen a right environment for yourself? Are you surrounded with peers that you will be able to discuss, or are you trying to pursue a breakthrough research on a scientific desert?
Okay, and then two short questions. Going back to the very first question, from these 118 applications of the first round, what was in the end the successful applicants? I don't know the numbers. 20 or something?
No, 9. 10.
So 10 out of 120 is the funding rate we can calculate. Okay.
10, 15. Yeah.
Because the first team program is a new program, and the expectations about this program was not understood properly, I think, because there is, in parallel, there is a HOMING program, naturally for the people from the same stage of the career, naturally. They reintegrate into the new environment after the postdoc position. That's the HOMING program. So only for those who are already after the good postdoc and with great achievements, there is a possibility to set up a first team.
Yeah.
So that's it.
I think our experience really shows that there were some applicants within the first team that they had the good proposals, they were good quality, but at the end, even at this stage, at the very last stage, we could see that there is no yet the leadership that we would like to see. And at the same time, because the formal requirements are really simple, you just have the PhD. So, I mean, people just apply. And I think that what we are trying to convince and to convey on you is that we are looking for excellent scientists, excellent projects. So that should be taken into account. And I think that can be helpful to really look at the list of the laureates of that program. So to somehow compare yourself, we don't necessarily mean that you have to be exactly the same or that this is a benchmark, but you could somehow, relate what kind of individuals we're seeing as first team leaders.
Could you say something about the success rate in the HOMING?
Well, we've got at the beginning 57 applicants, and then we awarded 13 grants in the program.
Yeah.
So that's the clear.
But in case of HOMING, we were clearly informed by our panel members that the competition was really strong, that people identified the program very well, and most of the applicants were really good. We actually really increased the funding beyond what was expected, because we could see that there were so many good projects that we didn't want to, put someone down just because that we said, well, we were going to spend 10 millions and not, 12.
And we hope it's going to happen in the current edition.
And one last formal question, is this a PhD degree or diploma? I mean, is it a different language, just uploaded in German, basically, or do we need an official
You don't upload
translation?
it. You only state.
Only the time when it was.
So at the end of if you qualify for the last stage, we will then ask you to provide us that, we want to make sure that you actually do have the diploma. Okay, there's two more questions. Let's start.
I have two more questions about expectations in first team and evaluation on the second level. You mentioned in your presentation, and that was also my impression from the website, that you expect projects, the science which is useful, which can end up with some applications. In the first call, we submitted a proposal, and half of the proposal was describing the basic research, and another half was describing the path to end up with a prototype of the final product based on this basic research. And then we received reviews from the second level, and most of the reviews were focusing on the basic research, and they almost neglected this application part of the proposal. So my question is, what is really the expectation? Is it more about basic research? And the second thing, who are the reviewers at the second level? Are there scientists or people from the research and development? And what's the proportion of those two groups of reviewers?
Okay.
So first of all, the criteria of the second stage. Could you remind the criteria for the second stage?
There is the originality of the applicant's scientific track record, the project, and the partnership.
So in fact, at the second stage, we do not oblige the reviewer to assess the applicability or the commercial value of the proposal. So the first panel, in fact, so-called science and economic panel, they decide under this condition whether the impact for the economy is possible or not. And again, at the third stage, when you come back to the panel, to the different panel, to the interdisciplinary part, you may be asked about your awareness of the impact.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, there is no need to put so much effort to describe this applicability in the
There is a
proposal.
program called TeamTech.
Okay.
We don't speak about it today. You can apply to TeamTech, where you are obliged to demonstrate the piece of technology, of a product, of a service you will work on. So that's a different program.
Okay.
But to really make sure that on the second stage of the evaluation, we actually do mostly involve scientists. And as the criteria in that stage says, this is about the scientific value of your achievements and your project. So you have to convince those experts in that particular field that your proposal, ideas, assumptions, and the results that you expect to see are valid. So if you have to probably work with that, so that to convince that the research you do is valuable for the community. Yeah? And there was a question here in the first row. Can we have that microphone? Oh.
Michalina Wężyk, Mostakowski
Hi.
Research Center. I would like to clarify one thing. Somebody mentioned about this postdoctoral activities research in Poland, performing postdoc in Poland, whether it counts or not to your eligibility. So being project manager of Sonata competition, does it count as postdoctoral research? Or
Sonata?
Sonata, yeah.
Well,
being PI of this project.
Exactly. That.
This is my postdoctoral research, but I'm PI of this. So.
Well, we're not absolutely strict with that. So if we're in doubt, we would leave it up to the experts, really, and we will not discard the application on our assumptions. So if we're having any issues, we might actually clarify those with the experts. We would have to discuss. I mean, drop us a question on that particular program. We'll look into it and we'll try to give you an answer on that. Okay, and I think we're slightly behind the schedule. Not much, it's just 10 minutes, but I'm really glad to hear that from the beginning of that session, you actually gradually started putting us on the questions. Let's continue to do that during the lunch break that we'll have right now. And we will be meeting here again at around, I don't know, 1:45, something like this. We'll definitely call you. We'll be just around here. So enjoy the lunch right now. Thanks. Okay. So I think we can slowly start again. And we will go on with the session on how to win an FNP grant. So here with me on the stage is Dr. Sebastian Glatt, laureate of the first competition of the first team program. Sebastian is working at the Małopolska Center of Biotechnology of the Jagiellonian University in Krakow. He started his studies at the University of Vienna on genetics and microbiology. Then in 2007 he completed his PhD at the exploratory research of Boehringer Ingelheim in Austria. And then for the next couple of years until 2015, Sebastian was affiliated at the EMBL in Heidelberg in Germany, where he did a postdoc, and then he was also actually involved in heading the EMBL facility on crystallization. What I think is worth noting is your chair. You actually did chair the EMBL Postdoc Association. So clearly there are some leadership experiences. And since 2015, Sebastian is a Max Planck group leader at the Jagiellonian University. And when it comes to the research, Sebastian is interested in the structure and the function of enzymes that are modifying tRNAs. You use the X-ray crystallography, cryo-electron microscopy to actually get the snapshots of those proteins, and then some other results or other methods to really validate your theories. And importantly, he does that very often in numerous collaborations with partners from Poland, Germany, Belgium, France, and Austria. Sadly, in a way, we actually expected to have another guest with us today. However, this night, a kid of our grantee has been hospitalized. Therefore, we could not, that person could not really attend us, and we're just keeping fingers crossed for the good health to the kid, and we'll try to manage and handle this discussion together. The reason we actually decided to invite Sebastian in that particular case is that he could share his own experience as an individual person who actually went through preparation of the application, its submission, evaluation. He reached the third stage, which is the pitching in front of a panel of experts, and won the reviewers, won the experts, and actually got funded with the first team grant. However, I see I saw on the here in the room some familiar faces. So if you have some experience already with us, or you are you want to ask some more specific questions to the topics that we will be discussing, just feel free, I think, even to interrupt us in a way, and we'll try to engage in a sort of engaging discussion. We would like to make it a little bit low profile. I mean, we have in the room people really interested in how to apply. Sebastian is here to share. So definitely that might be a slightly different perspective from the one that we presented to you a couple of minutes ago, a perspective of rather an administrator. So now let's see what an actual grantee see. Would you like to comment? Start.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure. First of all, before we start, I want to say a word about FNP or the work. So I can just say it's an excellent collaboration. Also with Anna, it's like just simply simple, helpful, and right to the point. So I would everybody encourage to try here because it's very professional partners on the other side.
Good, thanks. Good to hear that. Well, so I would like to start with some sort of rather general question to you on your experience on how did you actually prepare your application. what was your approach to this? How long did it take you? I mean, did you leave it to the very last minute, or did you actually work it through? And
I think the very last minute is never a good idea. Sometimes it's the only alternative. I think that first of all is, and this is something that I really learned in the different stages of my career, is that whatever you want to do, is the science is always first. So the idea is first. That's very clear. And the point is that you, in this case, you might want to, and I think that's because we have also here many different programs, is the first idea that you have to think is that is my stage of the career, the project that I'm asking for, is it actually, which program does it fit? Yeah. I think that would be the first thing. If you start preparing a grant, you actually look which are the, do I need an ERC start grant that gives me many million euros to fund my ideas, or do I get a kind of initial kind of installation grant? I think that's the very, very first idea, first thing to think about. The other thing is that I think when you apply, I think what I would think is that if you're in the situation that you get funded, you will have to do the things that you ask for. Yeah. so it's good to be reasonable when you design your project. I think that's the first thing. Is like, you know, you can write very nice things, and then the good thing about research proposals is that everything works always. That's different to the papers, because in the papers you describe actually only what has worked. So in the research proposals, everything works all the time. And I have to tell you that in the first year of my, basically first time of I think everybody's junior group leader life, you will write a lot of grants and everything works. But then the students come to you and nothing works. So you have to find a good compromise to prepare yourself. I would always think that, or that's what I'm trying to do, is basically 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline to be actually ready, finished, completely finished, happy, and then give it to 1 or 2, not too many, experienced colleagues of trust that will read your proposal and will not just tell you it's great.
Perfect.
Yeah. But they will tell you that's too long, that's too short, that's not clear, that's clear for you and me, but not probably for everybody. And then you normally go, and it's similar with publications, that's normally when you go from very good to excellent. And I think that's really I would really advise you to finish way before. That would be my.
One remark we recently heard from our panel members, that actually the issue that you put in place is that some applicants are simply over-optimistic towards the goals that were put in their proposals, and that these are just simply unrealistic. Yeah? And have you had any input from your host institution when putting the proposal through? Or
they told me lots about which administrative points I have to go through to actually submit the application. No, I think, because it was also in the discussion before, I think that if you choose the right partner, the right collaboration partners, but that's not only for grants, but also for general projects, I think they are normally the experts in the field that complement your technical knowledge. So I think that's the perfect person to tell you if that's good. Yeah, and I mean, like in life in general, it's better to have kind of constructive criticism rather than that everybody says that it's great until you fail.
So do you actually discuss the objectives of your project with your partners, the partners that you select in the project, that you kind of, I don't know, do they somehow provide an input on how to, you know, divide those tasks in or what sort of methodology to take?
I mean, to be honest with you, that's something where, and I really see collaboration. At one point, if you're successful, lots of people want to collaborate with you. So at one point, you should be very careful who you collaborate with. And I think what you suggest in the application to write this rather extensive letter of collaboration. And I think you give a limit of 1 page, and I think that was more the tougher choice. To actually, that's where we, or is it 2? Sorry. But that's basically where I sat together with my international collaboration partner in this case also, and we basically discussed if the project is good and what he can do and what I can do. So I think it's a good moment in the project preparation or grant preparation where you can actually have a close contact with him and you basically define these things. I don't know how people handle it like in these kind of more national collaborations, but I normally, in general, I try to get official collaboration agreements with my people, because it's always nice to say we do something, but we actually need to do something.
Okay, you actually mentioned agreement, and have you actually foreseen in your project any IP rights could come out of that? And if that was maybe a sort of part of that agreement, that you somehow divide straight from the beginning, that if there is any IP that comes out of that, how do you share the rights?
I mean, we will try to do, because I think that's really, really important also these days to commercialize your ideas. I think that in maybe engineering, physics, in other places it's much more direct, where you can work on prototypes. In life sciences, what you very often is like really a basic concept. So it's a long way from, from an initial idea to a drug or a diagnostic marker. But I think the mindset is in general to go into this direction, and so what we intend to do is to set up a cellular system to screen for potential drugs. And I think that's where you have to be really realistic again, to say what is possible in the 3 years with potential extension. But you want to have a realistic point of view.
Thanks. Yeah. So then, you have your proposal ready, and there are certain bits in that proposal. So Monika has divided those attachments that you submit quite clearly. There are some that concerns clearly you, your CV, the papers or patents that you chose, and the way you describe your originality in respect to those papers. Do you have any tips on that? How to do that? How to present yourself to the panel members, to the reviewers? What sort of evidences you provided them with, so that they thought, well, he's the guy who should be supported, just because of his past track record?
Yeah, I'm tempted to say Nature and Cell papers help. Yeah, but I think the main point is that you want to convince the reviewers that that you're actually able to do it, and that your kind of projects that you have been doing before, that you actually have been doing them, not your boss. I mean, I come from EMBL, where it's very easy to do good science because the infrastructure is very good. So you could say that I didn't do it because I wouldn't manage to do it in Krakow. Also, the infrastructure is very good in Krakow. So you have just to convince I try to prepare it in a way, or prepare the piece of this attachment, really. In a way to describe very shortly what I'm able to do. But also there's obviously in this first team grant, you are basically going through the transition where you are a postdoc into a group leader. So you don't necessarily need to know all the detailed techniques, but you need to know how to organize the team, basically. So I think it's good to have a good overview about the techniques that you want to do. But there's kind of, a core expertise, and then things where you basically maybe explore new things. You want to establish new, ideas also in your laboratory, because, I went basically from a one single man project now into kind of to lead a team is a bit of a different task. And that's what I try to do, to show them that I can organize a very clear project.
Okay. So now we actually gradually move to the project, which was my second question, because that is another key ingredient. And, well, we're funding a person to run a project. And so how do you structure it? We already discussed that with a colleague, that the limit is there, so it's 10 pages. How do you utilize that space to provide the idea, the concept, the hypothesis? Do you give it any particular structure? Do you build a story around that? Or have you, some people use really nice figures to give the reviewers better perspective. And then assuming that there are different stages of the competition, and I think that's also a tip for you, and something that already Anya mentioned, that it will be read by a little bit more general reviewers to a very specific ones. So how did you do that? Were there any key issues, any things that you think are absolute must, and are there any things that everyone should really avoid when really putting a project?
I mean, first of all, you really need to be interested in your question. So I'm kind of that's why I would really start, and then you define. I normally like to define kind of, but that's also biology, which allows you to define a bit of a parallel workflow, where things are not too much interdependent. Because on the paper this sounds very good, and also each project is kind of prospering from the other part, but it also bears the risk that you get stuck at one point and then everything gets stuck. So you want to have some kind of independent flows of projects. I know this is probably not so easy if you're in, I think, physics or engineering, where you basically work on one piece, so that's probably different, but I can only present the biology point of view here. I think that in general, I can only say to be realistic because you will have to do it. I mean, I'm kind of, you could put the point, and you might hear from colleagues, it's like, just heal cancer, and it's great, and we heal cancer basically every day because you read 100 papers a day that get published, but still people die from cancer, so it seems not to be so efficient. But on the other hand, you want to give a broader perspective. So I always say is that you want to convince the reviewers that, and I'm sorry again, this is more the biology perspective, you want to basically show them where you are in 3 years, but also which PCR you make on the first day. You know, to find this kind of gap where you're very detailed about what you're doing. And that brings me back to the point of the preparation time. So I can tell you for this first team, it was a bit tighter because I think also the announcement was a bit tighter for the first call. But it basically took 3.5 weeks to really write, I mean, intensively 7 days a week to write this. And then another week with all the comments and everything. I think that's what we are talking about.
Have you got any preliminary data that you incorporated in the project?
I think that's really important to show that you can, I mean, I know that if you start your team, that's not so easy, but I think it's really, feasibility is something that is really important to show to the reviewers. Because, so I'm not a big fan of lots of figures. As a structural biologist, we can make these nice structures and give nice colors, but it's not necessary normally. One more kind of practical aspect is, because I'm reviewing also internally for other people, is I would not use one line distance. I would make it a bit kind of nice from the formatting, because if you look at something, then it should look nice, and then you like to read it. I think that's something more practical.
Yeah, sometimes you can hear that there are people who are, unable to squeeze as many as possible things on a given piece of paper. But I think that the remark is quite good. That it's good if you can easily read the project as just a piece of paper. That it's not that you have to take a glass.
Yeah.
To get it.
I mean, one thing that I try to do, and I know that this is a bit different. I mean, I'm also reviewing for other kind of international grant bodies, so I get some grants. Is I really like to define the questions very clearly, and then answer them. If that question can be sometimes more ambitious than the answer or your experimental approach. I think that's a good kind of mindset, that you try to answer a bigger question, and that gives you the bigger perspective, and then you answer it with a very specific experimental approach. I think that would be the not always possible.
Okay.
But
some people also, use the strategy that, with the expected results, they would provide certain things that would be sort of like a bread and butter, things that definitely will work. I mean, that would be, if you know your area, there are certain things that you can say that you will do. So in a way, you will complete the project. The agency should be fine. But they also, then try to convince the reviewers with those risky bits, with the bits that might not necessarily work, but if they do, that is something like an added value. In the case of that project, did you somehow use that, or do you ever use it, or you try to have your own approach towards this?
I mean, for that very project, I have to say that I thought that it's somehow risky, but apparently I described this very well because the reviewers actually didn't see it so risky.
Okay.
So that's quite nice. I have to say that, I mean, in this regard, I would say that. So one of the reviewers really said that it's too ambitious, but that also is something that I like to read normally because the lab is ambitious. Yeah, so it's good to be. I mean, not one of the three said it's too ambitious, but I think that we will manage because, and that's really I think the lesson for everybody is that. If you get the positive letter, you will actually the next day start doing these projects that you ask for.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions before we move into further on to discussion? I mean, do you have any comments on that? Do you have your own expertise already, or is there anything that you would like to ask? Okay.
You have mentioned about official collaboration agreement. Can you advise us what to do?
So let me. So the question is about the letter of intent between the partners and the sort of the official agreement. So your advice on that.
I mean, I would first of all the choice. I mean, maybe that is a very important point. I mean, my policy is basically I like to collaborate with people that I can also go for a beer with, because that's basically you want to make. This is more a trust thing. Yeah, because you can always say that you work together, but then if you are the person that does all the work and the other person just there's nothing, then that's not a collaboration. I think for the letter, I would really think that you might want to work with somebody that is probably. I could say just take a very big name. In this case, I have to say he's also an extremely good scientist, but he's also basically on the rise yet. So he's not kind of the established professor, I would say. But I mean, he just had 2 very nice cell papers, so I think he's the right person to collaborate with. But trust and honesty. Yes. Yes.
So how do you handle that? So how do you approach that person with, who comes up with the contract? What's there in that contract? Are those sort of issues that you wanted to know?
No, yeah. So I mean, if you have, So if they have the right partner, basically, I think the best is that you just ask if that's okay for them. Yeah. If they say no, then you already kind of who you're dealing with somehow. Yeah, because then you want also that the other person actually works on the project. Yeah.
And who signs the agreement?
Both.
You yourself and your
both sides.
Both sides, 2 people.
I mean, but that's also for any kind of project that we are trying to do.
Your university doesn't sign it.
Surprisingly, that's one of the forms that they have not invented.
Okay, we have a question at the back.
Yeah. Follow up to the same question. Is it? But it's both question to you and to FNP. So, is the idea for the partner to be a person or on more or less the same level as us, maybe a bit higher, so person who already has his independent group, but is not yet a household name? Or it's better to have someone who is like a leader in the field. That's one part, and the second part is it, and that's actually to you. So do you previously worked with this person, or do you knew each other? Did you knew each other but didn't actually publish anything yet? Because that would be.
I mean, I start with the second part maybe. So basically, he approached me while I was still a postdoc, And I was very excited because he brought a really new aspect to some of the projects. But then my former boss said, basically, this you do when you have your own lab. So we stayed in contact. And then basically once I got the position, I immediately contacted him and said, do we want to work together?
Which means at the time of publication you didn't have anything published together yet?
No, nothing. And the first part?
Whether the balance between
I personally, but that's also sometimes where I'm kind of really against the kind of the established Polish system, is that I think that if I find a master student that tells me how to solve a problem, then I prefer to work with the master student than with the professor. So it doesn't matter for the science, if you have a good person, then you work with them. I don't know.
In the case of our programs where we have this development of human potential, we care really for students and for PhD students. So we have to have some experience and experienced people in the project who would care for them. If the leader in the first team program is not experienced yet very much, so it would be very advisable to have an experienced person as a partner who would welcome perhaps PhD students in their lab and to talk to them, and to be another person who would supervise. In other words, there is a requirement to have a supervisor or co-supervisor or mentor really, for PhD students, if you want to have it in your first team program. So a mentor means someone who is able to do it.
It's not really officially recognized, but someone who is providing an additional advice to the PhD student beyond what is beyond that relationship between the student and the PI of the project. Yeah? And then what I could add on that, and with the relationship with relation to homing and reintegration grants, because I think with the first team it's really purely down to the quality of science and the partnerships that you want to do. But in case of homing, especially in case of Poles that are currently coming back to Poland, so you have to really make sure where are you coming back and where are you going to be based. If it's the very same person that you left his or her lab and now you're returning, because that might be an issue for the panelist and when it comes to your independence. And it's the same if you, for instance, put as a partner of that project your, let's say, former boss from abroad. Is that an added value to the project? Or maybe you should actually look for someone that would fit into, let's say, a niche that you want to start occupying with that project. And very similar to reintegrations. You have to convince us that you're gaining experience and that you're not sort of bound tightly with your previous boss and you're coming back and you will actually continue to work sort of, maybe not on the behalf, but for your boss, that you will be, you're always the second, that the boss will be in front. So you have to we want to make sure that while granting you the funds, that they will help you on your project and everyone else is secondary, really.
Maybe can I also comment on the mentoring, because I think that's really something, if you don't feel that you have a mentor in your career, then I think that you should really look for one, because it really helps you a lot and if the program actually via the collaboration partner allows you to kind of officialize such a mentorship, I think it's very important. My personal view on this is more, for the mentoring, it's good to find role models for your next step. So look for people that you want to be in 10 years. I mean, I understand for the students, I think it's a very important issue to have experienced people to guide you. But for your personal development and your career, I think the best is to find people that you can actually identify yourself with, and not saying like, I want to be like that person in 30 years. Because in 30 years, the science and the funding and the whole society is probably different. So it's probably good to talk with people that just made the step that you are ahead of. That's I think what I would look for.
Yeah.
Again, coming back to the page limit, how much? We all think what we are working on is the most important, exciting thing. How much time, or how much of the actual proposal did you spend to build up your story? You know, state of the art, scientific importance, clinical importance.
I like to think in one-page packages. I think that's a good thing. So a 3-year project is a good page. I mean, you will face, if you apply for an ERC grant, you will face very similar page limits where you have to describe much broader projects. So that's what I say is that's why I'm trying to be, for example, normally the grants or the drafts that are finished when I say I'm happy with them and then I give it to the people are probably a bit longer. Yeah, and then I would just really go through them, and then you can take things out again. It's actually at one point it's easier. What I would not do is I would not go down to font size 9 and broaden the margins and the stuff. This I would not do. I would rather describe what you describe. Yeah, and I would normally say it's a one-page introduction or an abstract and then a summary. I don't know. I think you don't have any kind of requirements.
Provide any
grant
model,
bodies
so
have basically really requirements, and then.
And in addition, I would only comment that our colleagues are very strict about the page limits. If you exceed the page limits, it will be cut on the final requirement number, and that's it. Regardless, the merit would be on the end.
Which at the end, it's actually working in your favor in a way, because we could actually consider the application being not eligible because you exceeded, and we could just get rid of it. But what we decided to do, we cut it. We cut it to the limits that we put in the documentation. So if the summary of your project and the biggest conclusions, and that the sexy bit in your project was on the page 11th, that was gone. The references it's 10 pages of text plus references. So you can have another 10 pages of references if you wish. Yeah. Yeah. Any other comments, or should we move on?
Maybe it's a bit out of topic, but why did you choose Małopolska Center of Biotechnology?
Because it's the best place in the world.
Very loyal.
I think it's more. It's quite exciting to be actually in a place that is new and offers really, really nice opportunities for the future. One reason why I also came to Poland basically is that I saw lots of extremely good students abroad. So I was also at the EMBL. I evaluated lots of very good PhD students. So the undergraduate education in Poland is extremely good. So that's what I would say. The problem is that lots of people leave, and most of them don't come back. So now I have to say, to start up a team in Germany, or maybe the US is even worse, is here basically what you get in the US is basically a sheet of paper that says your name and it says you have an employment. And that's it. So you have to rent your office space, you have to buy your computer, you have to pay your salary, you have to do this from grants. So you're really depending on grants. And you have to see that the funding rates, even if it's 10%, it's competitive, and that's also good like this. But in Poland, there is actually quite a big amount of funding possibilities for a group. So to start up your lab here is actually comparatively easy compared to other countries. And I think that's really a chance also for Poland. There are obviously also new developments in kind of communication technology, which make it much easier. So these days, I have collaboration partners from the furthest one is Australia. So we have shared Dropbox accounts, we have Skype conferences, we have emails. It's much easier these days to do it from anywhere. So I don't see any reason. In general, I don't really understand why I get this question basically very often, and I wouldn't have been asked this question in other countries. I think that Poland just will develop very well. I don't see any reason why it should not. So it's good to be here now.
Good. So I will suggest to start a slightly different topic, which is already an evaluation, and I think quite unique in terms of the FNP programs is the interview with the panel. And only a selected number of candidates actually go through this. So to share your experience on that, and how did you feel about it? Have you actually somehow prepared yourself for this? Were any questions given on that that pitching session that were particularly challenging? And this,
I think the biggest challenge was that day it had 37 degrees, and I decided to wear a suit as well. And that was the biggest challenge, I would say. It was really hot. I think that, and that's a general thing, I think if you're in academic science and you have to live with reviewers, and I think it's a very good filter, because otherwise everybody could just publish anything. So I think that's really, I think, quite unique, actually, is that the first time that you get rejected from a paper or a grant, you hate them. You basically, you don't like them. But in the end, the worst thing is that, and also for this, I have to say that for this first team grant, there was one reviewer that was actually quite critical. But you have to basically read it, go to sleep, and the next day start thinking what he actually really meant. And then most of the time, and I'm afraid to say that, most of the time they are actually right. And then you start thinking, making a better proposal, better paper. So it's just it's professional. This is not something very, maybe sometimes it gets personal, but in general, these reviews were very professional, and there was some criticism, and I had to think about it. And I didn't say that I would say that I have changed the proposal or the approach, but I thought a bit more clearly which PCR I would do on first day first.
Okay.
Yeah, so to shift the priorities a bit.
Okay, thanks. And well, to sum up, really, what was the biggest challenge that you think when really, putting all that pieces together?
I'm tempted to say the university administration, but I would rather say the biggest challenge of the whole project in general will be now to do it. I think that's what I would say.
Very reasonable.
To actually do it, but I think that's really something that you learn, that you have to do it. So ask only for things that you are actually interested in, because only like then you will have the motivation for the next years to motivate your people. If you stay interested, if you don't really care, then just don't do the effort. I think the biggest challenge is, of course, to live with competition. I think that's something where I was surprised to see 120 applicants, because it was quite tight schedule for the application. So I'm obviously very happy that we succeeded, but I think, to go through this process and to stay calm and now do the experiment, I think that's the
good. So I guess we all wish you good luck on that. And thanks for really joining us here. And we're staying here. So if you would really like to ask the questions, do not hesitate, really. I think that we're actually making an effort and organizing that time so that you can really, learn as much as possible, because it's also in our own advantage that, and mostly for you to really come up with the good proposals. And we would like to see you, really progressing and developing yourself. So if there's anything that you would like to know a little bit more details on, really don't hesitate. I think there are no stupid questions. Let's agree on that, and so shoot on.
Paweł Sipczyński, National Center for Nuclear Research at Polskiej. I have a question to you. Do you have a mentor above yourself, or are you taking every decision on your own?
No, it's a bit. I would I would say yes and yes. So I have mentors, but they are not influencing my decisions. I would say it like this, because the decision is something that maybe that's something to learn also, like when you go to a group leader, is that you're responsible for it. Yeah, so you can get good advice from mentors, but the decision you take. That's what I would say.
For structuring the budget, we have a limit. And how did you decide to hire a postdoc or instead of 2 students? Or
as I said, first is basically, and that's the very first principle, is the program that I'm applying to allows me to do the research that I think is interesting for the next years for my lab. So that's the first thing. So when I identified the first team grant as being reasonable for answering these questions, when you finish your postdoc and you're an expert in your techniques, you are really good, and then you start your lab, and then you expect everybody to be on your level. Yeah, and that's not the case. Yeah, so you're dealing with people that will be at your level if you teach them properly, but they are not as experienced. So you have to plan smaller working packages than, you're not asking for 6 or 5 copies of yourself to be funded, but you ask for students or postdocs, and I think it's good to find the balance. I think, and it's also, but that's my personal idea of a lab, is that it's good to have some kind of subgroups between postdocs and PhDs, because you might not be able to supervise everybody every day. So it's good to have some internal mentors as well, some structuring. In general, the funds are sufficient, I would weight and efficient to do the projects.
I see the question at the back.
The first team program allow for the supervising the PhDs. How you manage this? If you got the PhD and supervising PhD is not allowed, as far as I know, in Polish law.
So you have to. I'm starting the process now for trying to get a habilitation. Then you can do it. So, but I have obviously talked with people. I think that's something we discussed in general. It's a bit problematic in Poland. My advice is that you will need to enroll people in programs, and the Polish PhD program system currently is laid out in a way that they normally recruit once a year. Yeah, so to ask for stipends means that they have to be enrolled, and it's a bit problematic. Currently, because especially now it's almost October, so all these programs start in October. So basically I would count on that if you ask for stipends, normally these students will only be able to start in October. Yeah, so it's a bit, this is where the academic system, I think, is not fully prepared for this kind of stipend system. But this is something also to discuss with the funding body.
So who supervised these students then?
But
the PhD students.
It is actually allowed to supervise a student even without the habilitation. You're not this primary supervisor, but you can be I don't know if it's in English, secondary or help. Yeah. So you can do this, and that is very helpful actually, if you have a track record and you actually co-supervised a PhD, you're on a very good way for the quick habilitation.
As I understand it, is also the process of doing your experimental work as a PhD in a program and the process of obtaining an academic degree are kind of two pairs of shoes in Poland. So the procedure to initiate your PhD can be basically at the end, and it's independent of what we are talking about now, that you are able to obtain a stipend from a grant.
I would like to ask, how big is your team? Because I looked into the budget and it seems a postdoc and 2 students is sort of the maximum. Did you manage to extend this team to, say, include 2 postdocs or something like this?
I have a bit of a special place here because I didn't ask for anything for myself, because I have a good contract with the university, so I asked for 6 people actually. But it's because I didn't ask for any salary for myself.
I just wanted to share an information that it's possible to bypass this limitation of enrollment for the PhD programs, because according to Polish law, you are a PhD student if the procedure of a PhD dissertation was started already. So I don't know how to translate it in English, but in Polish, jeśli ktoś otworzył przewód doktorski, to już ma status studenta, więc może otrzymać stypendium. So if someone without enrollment to the program started all those procedures of PhD dissertation can already receive the stipends.
This is on the internet, be careful.
Yeah.
But it's
certain programs and institutions will recognize you as a student, certain don't. And for instance, in our case, you need to be enrolled. You need to be a doctorate student, and not the type of the student, not the student, the person with the otwarty przewód doktorski. You have to be a third degree student. Yeah. 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 But we really would like to, as we said, that, and to a certain extent, the research and the degree are uncoupled. And in our case, we really want the PhD students that are being involved in the projects that this goes in pair. So you're actually doing a research and you're learning by your research, and out of that research, you actually come up, within a year with your degree. Yeah. Okay, we have maybe last two questions. Mm-hmm. And I think my colleague already is showing us that we're kind of running out of time, but we're still here. So if you want to continue on the individual basis, let's do it.
Filip Dzikowski, I have a question. How certain were you that you'll get 6 good people into your project?
I mean, this is how to answer that, because they're probably watching now. They're all excellent. No, I would say, I mean, I have an advantage because I'm a Max Planck group leader, so obviously it's very attractive. I mean, my advice would be also that, because I've been asked and we had this discussion, I think, in the morning, is where I don't have any teaching obligations. So how do I get kind of exposed to students? Is that, and I had this discussion with several professors also, is that I actually have a very nice homepage, and that's very important. And this is very, very important. Yeah. So don't underestimate the importance of your internet access and your email response rate. So the best students, if you don't reply to them, they will go somewhere else. Yeah, so it's good to interview people. Basically, I can tell you, I had 3 Skype interviews yesterday, and I have 4 Skype interviews tomorrow, and on Monday I'm interviewing another 3 people on Skype, and they are somewhere in Europe. Yeah, so everybody has Skype these days. You just contact them, you talk with them, and that's the easiest way to filter out who is good and who is not good. And again, the same applies. You want to have people that you actually can go out with. I think it's a good.
So the last question, is there any last question? No? Okay.
How flexible is FNP if you want to make some corrections to your plans? For example, okay, I couldn't find a postdoc, so I will hire 2 PhD students instead, or something like that.
As I said in the beginning, that's why I started. They're extremely professional, very helpful, and I think you can at least talk about it. I mean, from my experience, there were not so many big changes, because if your plan is not, you should have a good plan from the beginning, right? So that's the part, but maybe it's more an answer.
From our side, really, if you win the grant and on the second day you're already saying, oh, well, I have to implement certain changes, that's not necessarily something that we would like to hear on a day one, because this is your plan, yeah. And let's say that comes to the composition of your team, try to get that postdoc, and if that doesn't really work, you can really come back to us and you will, and we can discuss that. If that's the merit, reasonable reason for not being able to really get the good postdoc, and this is quite common. I think many of our beneficiaries, grantees, are saying that this is an issue, that to actually attract people, or to attract people that you would like to work with. Yeah? And I think we are open to many cases. Like, it's not like that you came up with the plan to build a bridge. Whatever happens, you will build that bridge a brick by brick. This is a science. So it may happen that even within that 5 months window between the moment you submit your application and the moment when we award you with a grant, something might have happened and someone might have scooped you and that paper has been published. And I think we're reasonable enough to discuss that and to actually implement changes to your project design, so that the moment when we know that we actually put a trust in you, that we selected you from the number of people, we will be able to provide you with that level of trust, so that for the good of the project. If something really goes bad, and as a grantee, you should always just let us know. I think this is the best way to do it, to handle it. If there are any issues, we're not there, and we're not gonna shout at you and try to penalize you for things that sometimes are beyond your control. It's really much better to signalize that straight from the beginning. And I think we can together work through an issue and try to come up with a reasonable solution to that. So
it would especially also concern the issues where you need to increase the budget. Because, for instance, a postdoc may acquire much more funds than a PhD person, student. So in that case, we are also open to increase the budget if you need to open new position, well-funded within the program.
Yeah, I can clearly imagine that, for instance, you have a project and you thought that you were going to do, 3 or 4 experiments, and one of those experiments actually provides you with something that you completely did not expect, but that actually opens up a completely new avenue that you would like to instantly go on with. And if that's really a case, you can notify us and we will somehow work it through. And maybe you could put an additional staff, a person whom you did not foreseen in your original application, so that you would be given additional funds. At the same time, you can, if something really goes wrong and if there's an issue, you can also cut your budget a little bit.
And there is also a program reintegration, POWROTY, which often the people who apply to this program, they are after the break related to a childbirth, simply, after the maternity leave. So in that stage, they do the program, they have a baby, and the baby often gets sick or whatever, needs caring and whatever. And sometimes, very often, almost in every cases, sometimes the project doesn't go the same direction on the same time as it was predicted. It is normal. And in every case like that, we simply do the adjustments.
There are certain adjustments that are even clearly laid down in the competition documentation. Things that you can take for granted. If in case of especially women, during the lifetime of the project, you will give birth, you will be given an extra time for realizing that project. Things like this,
The project can be extended by 1 year, I think. In a case
so
you actually
6 months in case of just giving a birth, and that's a sort of an automatic in a way. And there will be an extra year for first team leaders only. Yeah.
Just a quick question about the extension. In the presentation before lunch, it said that there will be another competition that will allow you for 1 year extension. But if it's not cost-related extension, it's only time frame for,
No,
let's say, finishing
it can
a
be
PhD.
both. It can be both.
But
So-
if it is no extra cost, still there will be a competition, or is it kind of a...
No, it
outside?
will be based on the competition.
Okay.
So after the second year, we will announce an internal competition just for the grantees to write up a short summary of what has been happening in the project for the past 2 years. We obviously have your progress report, so we wouldn't like to, put an additional burden on you, but to really summarize it and to provide a short proposal for what would you like to do in another year, and if you require additional funds for that or not, and that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think this is clearly we have to finish. And some of you are, catching trains or other ways to get home, but we're still here, or actually in the other room, and we will be able to answer your questions, the questions that maybe you didn't want to ask publicly, but you would like to ask them individually. Just to finish up, I would like to again thank to Sebastian for coming here. I would like to thank all of you for being interested in those schemes and actually devoting your time, and to my colleagues who helped us to put the sort of merit-based input to the today presentation, and our colleagues who actually made the whole event possible. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you on some point later, and wish you good luck. Thanks.